I don't know why I was fired. I mean, it kind of is an Agatha Christie story. There are like so many suspects. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I was never told I can only speculate. There were a lot of different things going on. I had a lot of opinions that were unpopular, you know, with people who might have influenced my show getting canceled. So I really don't know. I will say, you know, right after it happened, people said, well, how can they fire the top guy? And because that's what it is. I'm certainly not the first high-rated host to get fired. It's not only about ratings. There are a lot of different factors. It's a big company. You all have worked for and run big companies, and you know there's a lot of complicated stuff going on, and it's never exactly clear, you know, why things happen the way they do. But I was not shocked by it. I mean, I was shocked by it in a short-term sense. I didn't expect to have my show canceled that morning, but I was not shocked at all when I thought about it for a minute. I'd expected that. You know, you can't kind of give the finger to everybody and persist in a corporate job. So no hard feelings. In fact, I said that on the call when I received the news. It's not my company, and I never felt like I had a right to be on the air. I was working at the pleasure of the family that runs the company, who treated me very well, and they wanted me off, and so I was off.
Did you ever have moments where somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, advertiser XYZ is getting uncomfortable, or we're trying to land this new advertiser and they want you to shape things in one route? Did you ever feel that pressure? Is that just a thing that is kind of like a boogeyman that doesn't actually exist?
Oh, it not only exists, it defines news coverage, especially on pharma. You know, because pharma is the biggest advertiser in television, as I know you know. And so for sure, I mean, if, you know, Pfizer is sponsoring your show, you're not going to question the vax. I mean, it's kind of that simple. So absolutely. And of course, that's why they're the biggest advertiser, so they can shape news coverage. I mean, that's the point. But I personally never had a single person say to me, don't say this, that I recall. I haven't thought about it too much, but that certainly, I was there 14 years, and I didn't have that experience regularly or at all, really, that I can remember. And I think, you know, my producers may have been told that, but it didn't ever get to me because I was always really clear, which is, I always said out loud to the supervisors there, you know, I work for your company. I don't own this network. All I can control is what I say. If you don't like what I say, don't have me on TV. But as long as I'm on TV, I'm going to say what I think is true. And in a million cases, I said only part of what I think, not because of my employer, but just because you shouldn't actually say everything you think. I mean, I have some crackpot views too, or I have resentments that I didn't want to work out on the air. I mean, you know, you're straining yourself and you want to, as you do in your personal life. But on no question of principle did I ever pull back, because I wouldn't do that. And again, I was just super clear. If you don't like what I'm saying, take me off the air, but I'm not going to, you know, toe a line. And because I was so clear about that, I just think they didn't think it was worth having some kind of dispute with me. And to their great credit, for the time that I was there, and I said this many times in public, like I took positions on the Ukraine war, on the COVID vaccine, on the COVID lockdowns, among other issues that I think, you know, I've been vindicated on pretty conclusively, on the origins of COVID. And all of those are super unpopular. On January 6th, which was so hated at the company where I worked that a number of people, including on-air people, that I can think of, resigned in protest over me suggesting that actually it was more complicated than it looked, and there were a bunch of federal agents in the crowd. How can you say that? Are you claiming a false flag? Well, no, wouldn't use that phrase, but like, this is something weird going on here. Well, I've been vindicated on that. That sounds like I'm bragging. I'm not. I'm just stating factually that I said things that were truly hated by a lot of the people who worked there, and they let me keep saying them. So it's kind of hard to complain, really, at this point, right? Again, it's not my company.
Just from a business standpoint, I think it's weird for a company to fire their top performer and to do so without giving any notes. I mean, if any of us had a superstar executive or a superstar engineer, like a 100X engineer, working at one of our companies, and like day in and day out, they were, you know, hitting every milestone and crushing it. Like, if you had a problem with them, you would give them a note. You would just like try to say, hey, can we just like, so I just think from like a business standpoint, it's so weird. It just seems like self-destructive. And I think it was. I mean, their ratings really cratered in the wake of making this change. Maybe they've come back a little bit, but I don't think it's ever been the same. I just think it's a crazy way to operate a business. So yeah, it's their right. I mean, they can do whatever they want, but I don't understand it as a way of doing business.
Well, I don't understand it as a way of living either. I mean, everybody in the course of life, whether as a parent or an employer or just a friend, has to deliver uncomfortable news or disagree with someone that you deal with, and you have a moral obligation to explain the disagreement. You can't just, levy the penalty and leave it at that. You have to explain why you're doing that, and I think it's incumbent on us morally to do that. I wasn't that mad about it, actually, because I know the rules of that particular business, which are really harsh. And I've been in it, my whole life. And so I've seen a lot of people as talented or more talented than I meet bad ends, and for reasons that I thought were not justified. And I know them all really well. So you work in a business like that, you know what it is. You know the black car is going to show up at 3 a.m. and tow you to Lubyanka, and that's just what it is. You know what I mean? You can't kind of whine about it,